Now we've got this subdivision surface turned on for the head. I do want to go ahead and make sure that there's a controller here for the neck. So under the neck, I don't think we're going to need to animate this neck base because everything will animate with the chest, which I have a controller for. But we do want to have one for the neck, or for the head. So not at the neck base, but at the head. Let's create a controller for this by using a spline, and then we'll make a, for the head, let's make it a four-sided. Really doesn't matter that much, so let's just make it an XZ. The diamond, we'll just make it a little bit smaller like this. There we go. And I am going to, I think, leave it right there. That's great. Call this the head control. And I'll set the parent up to the chest right here. Okay. Real quick, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and freeze all the transformations of all those controllers we just made so that they're always zeroed. Freeze the controller of that. Let's just make sure that this works. We're going to add a PSR constraint. There we go. And let's change the color. What should this be? Let's make it kind of a green again. There we go. So now we've got this lovely ability to animate her head going in any direction. It's perfect. That's what we want. All right, so now it's time to set up a few face controls. I want to have some controls for these eyelids, a couple of controls for these eyebrows, and certainly a few controls for the mouth. So let's start with the mouth. That way we've got that one out of the way, and we can move on to the kind of easier stuff. So one thing I'd want to do also before I forget is I want to make some controls for these little hair tips. So I'm going to move this into place right here. Maybe just line it up a little bit better so that it rotates from about right here. And let's add a little controller for that with a circle. PSR, zero it out. It's got to be a lot smaller, so let's just shrink it. Make it on the XZ plane again. This will just be the right hair control. Do another one on the left, PSR 0. Make sure that this axis is up where it needs to be. And then we'll zero this one out as well. Make it a little bigger so we can see it. These are both black, so we might want to make these a different color just so people can see them. White is fine. And then let's just put these up here somewhere in the head control. They move with the head, but the hair is going to follow these. So let's add some more PSR constraints for those hair pieces. Which one is this? The right hair? Okay, so this will be the right hair control here. And the left hair control will be here. And let's just try it out. Make sure our axis control is off. Yeah, now we can move these like that. That's kind of fun. We are going to need to put some controls on these eyebrows, but let's start with the mouth. You know something too? Now, while we're at it, we can turn off our. Whoop. While I'm thinking about it, man, I cannot seem to move the camera. There we go. All right, while I'm thinking about it, we do not need to see these joints anymore. Isn't that great? So let's go up to our filter. We'll turn off joints once and for all. So now we've got this beautiful rigged character, and now we're going to move on to the mouth. All right, so let's talk about the mouth. This is going to be, we're going to be changing the mouth shape using something called pose morphs. This is a whole different type of rigging that is very similar to how other programs do things like blend shapes. You can actually create multiple shapes that this mesh can actually move between, and there's little sliders that you can actually use in your animation that will allow it to move between those different shapes. So we're just going to make, I think, 3, maybe 4 different shapes with this mouth. You're free to make as many shapes as you want. We've created a nice cube shape that you can work with. But for this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into this mouth SDS. We're going to turn off the subdivision surface. So all we can see is this. Let's just rotate it out a little bit. And let's add a, it's called a pose morph. So let's add a pose morph. It's right here under this character tags pose morph. It adds it right to the mesh. And then we need to go to points. The base pose is what we created at the beginning. So let's make one that's called smile. And right now it's under edit mode. There's another mode called animate, and this is what you would want it to be in if you are going to be moving any of these sliders to actually animate it. You can do post deformers, which is important if you are, if the head has turned. We'll go up to here, just to show you. If the head turns like this, and I want to try to move that mouth around inside of this pose morph, and I am going to be using just this brush tool quite a bit. Oh, I might have messed it up already. Okay. We're just quickly blocking in some shapes that we can use for sliders. This can get as detailed as you want it to be. But this is the smile pose. So now you can kind of test it. All right. Let's add another pose. We'll call this the frown. Oops, not front. Frown. And let's see, how do we want to do this? I think I am going to just, move the stuff around. And I'll clean that up, after I get it in a place that I'm okay with it. Just trying to shape this in a way that looks like the mouth is kind of frowning. remember we have a subdivision surface on the actual mouth, so all this kind of blocky looking geometry is going to get really smoothed out. You want to make sure of is that it's still following the curvature of the face. And I think I'm going to select the whole thing here and move it down. There you go. All right, so let's add another pose, and we'll make this the O pose. O. The way we'll do that is we'll grab our edge loops. If it'll let me. Not select boundary loop. See what I'm doing is I'm just kind of manipulating this shape using these edge loops that we've created. I'm going to move these way in. Really, while you're in the pose morph, any scaling or changing shapes of anything, as long as you've got points mode on, it's going to record that inside of the pose morph. So I could just do a scale in. So once I have all this blocked the way I want it, I can do some scaling. Oops. Or grab the face for this one, just kind of move it in. Let's do the same thing on the other side here. This can also get a little tedious, but it's fun because you're kind of working on facial expressions. I'll move that down. This down. In a little bit. We're still dealing with a few odd vertices. Kind of making it into a circle, you know. It's the back. There you go. If you really want to, what you can do is just grab all these faces. I'm going to do a little bit of smoothing on this because I think it's a little bit you know, kind of blocky, but still kind of like, oh, like it's going to work for our O face, right? Let's do a little bit of smoothing and see what happens. Yeah, it's fine. And then what I'll do is I'll grab this whole thing and scale it up like this. It is recording that point data. There we go. See? And that's as easy as it, you know, it's as easy as that to really make a lot of different mouth shapes and pose morphs. There's a great book that I was recommended by Preston Gibson called Stop Staring, a guide to facial animation and expressions. And it talks about how with rigging mouths, if you wanted to do lip sync, there really are only 4 extremes that you need to keep in mind, which are wide and narrow, and open and closed. And between all 4 of those extremes, you can pretty much get almost every mouth shape. So in our case, we are just going to have these 3. But then when we want to go to animate, we can just do this, this, or this, and anything in between. Another cool thing we can do is we can make a UI for these. That's not it. Okay, let me do that again. So if you want to make a UI that's right on your screen for using any of these facial expressions, all you have to do is right-click, you just grab all 3 of these, and go to Add to HUD. We can change the name of this pose morph to mouse shapes. There we go. Now we can move this slider back and forth, and we can animate it if we want. There you go. We'll just remove this for now, and we'll save it. I'm going to move the head back to its original position. Oops, using the head controller. Now let's add a few pose morphs for these eyes and these eyebrows, and we're ready to animate.